we're not gonna like sit here and have speakers come up and just do presentations, right? There's very few opportunities, especially in these strange times that we're living in, for us to be able to gather, be in community, and be with one another. So I think it's very important that we use this time effectively and have a conversation about some of the themes of what's going on today. With mentorship, we'll start off with a little bit of conversations about like the importance of community, right? So I want to hear from y'all. What are some of the what are some things that are important to you about community? I don't mind waiting either. Oh, y'all think I'm playing? Like, I really don't mind waiting.
It gives you a sense of belonging.
It gives you a sense of belonging, most definitely. And would you agree that sense of belonging oftentimes gives us direction? Yeah. And so, what is a drive without a destination? Right? It's pointless. And that's what initiatives like this mentorship program provide us. Opportunities to have a direction and goal and where we're going to, because it truly does take a village, right? Like, we all know that it takes a village. A lot of times when a lot of the Somali immigrants come in, we move here into apartment complexes that kind of resemble the villages that we left, right? You can go over to Habaner's house down the street and like kick it for a little bit, watch TV with your cousins and spend time, you know? And so I want to hear that. What are some memories that y'all have from when you were younger that really highlight the definition of community?
Like being able to like play in the near park with like your friends.
What would you play?
Honestly, we play tag.
Okay.
Yeah, we play a little basketball.
Okay.
Gender here.
Okay, multifaceted. We have many abilities out here. I want to hear some more, though. Give me some more memories. I know we ain't just play tag and hoop.
It takes like a community to raise a village, so I remember being disciplined by other young members.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, discipline definitely is an equal opportunity initiative a lot of times when it comes to community, right? But I think it's important for us to remember what that discipline is rooted in. It's reinforcing the values that we have, right? What is a life without parameters? And what is a community without the individuals that set those parameters for us? I think that's something that's incredibly important. And we're going to kind of continue to have this conversation throughout the night with our speakers, giving us more ideas that we can branch off of as we continue to discuss and as we continue to hear more themes about the importance of mentorship, about the importance of having strong narratives, and about some of those pillars of our communities. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Brian up, and he'll give us some words.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for the applause as well. That felt nice. So my name is Brian Erlandson, and my role in all of this, I serve as superintendent at Minnesota Transitions Charter School, where we have 8 programs across 7 sites. We're very fortunate to have Mariam as a teacher at our Banandir Academy program. I would say arguably among the top 10 for sure, even if not the top 5, but I don't want to get in trouble with the other teachers. Absolutely amazing. And it truly is an honor to be here. When Saad and Mariam asked me to join, I felt honored, and I'm grateful to be here because they're both just wonderful, wonderful people. And I get the sense that you all know that just by watching the interactions here. The more I've learned about the two of them over the past 3 years now, it's just been an incredible journey, and I think it speaks volumes of Mariam's book as well, because she's really touching on not so much focusing on what's different or differences that people might be fearful of, but she's really highlighting in the book that once we get to know and we get to understand and we listen and we learn, what we find is there's really not a lot to be fearful of. We don't need to be scared of differences. And I think that really speaks volumes even at a societal level. We know very well that we're not doing so well as a society. We know that the election coming up is going to be very contentious, most likely, no matter what, because people are very fearful right now. So I think for Mariam's book to come out, it's not only great for inclusiveness for our students, because certainly we want all students to feel welcome, especially now during a time when families are so stretched with distance learning and we're really struggling with social connections, that sense of community. We need to have networks of support, and we need to break down isolation, we need to break down fear, and we do that by listening and starting to see the beauty in others, just as I found in Mariam and in Saad as colleagues and friends. And you see the work, how it ripples out into the community, because that starts to open up doors where people can start to go, oh, you know, what I'm experiencing or what my son or daughter is experiencing isn't unusual, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, it's nothing to be afraid of. And we can create networks of support to lift people up, elevate their voices, and celebrate what makes them unique. And we don't need to be ashamed of mental health or things like autism. There's no shame in that whatsoever, because we're all human. We're all very dynamic, but I would argue all day long that we're all incredibly complex and beautiful, and we need to elevate that beauty in all of us. So congratulations on your second book, and I was really lucky I got an autographed copy, and I sent you a check in the mail. Saad probably took it. Yeah. All right. No, but it's really fantastic because it's just a beautiful book. My wife over here, she's a teacher as well. And, you know, she was commenting, and it's just spot on. We need more books reflected in our curriculum that show people of all different backgrounds, black, brown, all different backgrounds. Kids need to see themselves in the curriculum that's in front of them. And I know at MTCS we have work to do, and we're trying to take that journey now. Our role as a community is to start to do that really a deep level inside out work, looking at ourselves so that we can better ourselves and then better each other, and then continue to elevate the community. And the fact that we have the Banana programs, it's been such a blessing to get to know the Somali community in a broader sense. And I can say probably some of the greatest value has been being able to listen to the voices of the Somali community. And really sit back and go, how can we serve better? How can we do this better? And I'm really, really hopeful that the rest of the world starts to do that more so, because that's how we can make a shift and change things. And you're doing it with your book, so thank you. And with Saad, where is that young man? Oh, there you are, taking pictures. Hi, Saad. Saad, just a phenomenal guy. You know, I got to know him through his company Coherent, and then you know, we've become not only partners in business but also colleagues and friends as well. And he came to me with his mentorship proposal, and it's simply what's not to like about it. You know, one, the guy's got a master's degree in business administration. That's impressive. I did. I got to do it when I can. No, but he's, this is all sincere side. I mean, you are so thoughtful, so smart, very kind. I see that in both you and Mariam. So you really are I'd say you're a power couple. I think we have our next presidential candidates here. But that's what's going to change the world for the better. And it starts at a local level, just like the two of you are doing. So when Saad came to me and said, hey, can we give this a try? You know, it's absolutely. So we're going to give it a go, starting at one of our secondary programs, MTS Secondary. And what could be better when you're starting to create a network with caring, supportive adults who have walked a path that's not necessarily easy. And then we can go to our students and say, we can get you there. And that's where we start to surround our kids with lots of love and care and compassion and understanding. We listen and we elevate, and again, we change the world for the better. So again, thank you for inviting me out here. Thank you all for listening. Congratulations to you, and thank you both so much. I know I'm better because of you two being in this world, so thank you.
And I think Brian spoke to a couple of really good points in that last bit that I'd like to kind of expand upon a little bit. Through his talk, I was really thinking about the myth of prestige and how, like, a lot of times we tell ourselves these things are super important and these things are like way grandiose concepts that we need to achieve in order for us to get somewhere, right? A good example that I was taught when I was in college that really put that on a level playing field for me was the story of how To Kill a Mockingbird became a famous novel, right? Beyond the fact that, like, Harper Lee has some very interesting ideas about, like, society and how it should function, the reason why To Kill a Mockingbird was able to become as successful as it was because publishing companies needed a flagship book to post districts to buy the first paperback novel that was being sold by a publishing company. And through time, To Kill a Mockingbird became codified as this important work. But nothing separated it really in its merit from anything else in its time. It wasn't a novel idea in any way, shape, or form. The story that we told about it gave it its importance. And I think oftentimes we forget that the stories that we allow others to tell about us oftentimes perceives the way that we feel important about ourselves, right? Having champions like Brian for people like Saad codifies your importance in these spaces. It's important. We have to have a team of people that break down the mystique of success. It's attainable. When we realize that these, oftentimes things are a flip of a coin or a shift of a narrative, we see how attainable these things are, right? And just to, before we introduce the next speaker, I'll give you one last story about some of my mentors. I was a debate nerd in high school and college. I did speech and debate throughout. And my speech and debate coach, Dr. Tommy Lindsay Jr., he was a MacArthur Genius Award winner, the first black valedictorian of the University of San Francisco, like the super dope dude that's done amazing things, right? But we saw him every day in his matching Nike velour suits and grunting, right? And so we see you in your humanity, and then it makes your accomplishments much more attainable. Right? And that's what these mentorships programs do. We show the human behind the accomplishments, and then everything else just becomes more tangible, more attainable. Having stories like Ali's story in her book makes it just more clear of how much we've stigmatized different communities because of the narrative that we've placed on them, rather than understanding that many times that's not the narrative that they choose for themselves. And so it's flipping the golden rule from treating others how we would like to treat them, and treating others how they would like to be treated, right? And so I think with that, that's a really good jumping off point to introduce our next speaker. This table is going to be the death of me by the end of the day. To introduce our next speaker, Brother Osman.
Good evening. I'm so proud tonight to be in this amazing event, and I'm so proud to be in this event and be part of what my daughter, accomplished. And I know she tried a couple times to do a lot of different things, and finally from her childhood, she liked to write something. At the age of maybe when she was like, I don't know, she's gonna talk about that. I don't wanna talk about that now. And she came with the first book, Ayeyo, and now she came with, what do you wanna know about my cousin, Ali? And I'm so proud to have a daughter with this kind of talent. And at the same time, I'm so proud of my son-in-law, his creativity. And he's a business-minded, guy. He created a big company called Coherent with, at least 30, vans now for transportation. And now he started a non-profit organization. And that non-profit organization also is, mentorship program. And that's gonna help the students in the schools. And both of them, the couple, they have kind of connection to the schools. And they are working with the schools from different windows. And I like that. And I'm part of that also. I work with the schools for a long time. And I hope they're gonna succeed and have a lot of progress in this field for writing the books and the business that they have. And I'm welcoming everybody who came tonight here and be part of this great event. And I'm saying thank you so much for everyone who came here tonight and take part of this, great event. And I think both of them, they have a table there. So one is selling, books, and the other one selling, T-shirts. So once we finish, we're gonna turn around and see this. Thank you so much, guys.
If I can be a fraction as smooth as he is when I get up there, I've lived a good life. So we're going to go ahead and get into the next speaker, and then after we get into the next speaker, we're going to have a bit more conversations about some of the themes of the night. So next up, we have Brother Warren.
So, I had the opportunity to meet Osman last week, right, at Saad's office. And it was just really a great experience that I had, not just getting to meet him, but then getting to know him. And let me tell you, the jokes that we kind of shared, like the little things back and forth, it was fun. It was really my pleasure to meet you and just be able to share some time with you. And, as you think of a great family that you have, don't know your family extensively, know you a little bit, Mariam, because of my relationship with Saad, as I'll get into. But I can see why your success in part comes from probably your upbringing and your influence from your father, which is really just a wonderful thing. And when I think about what you're doing right now with writing your books, and think about this, you guys, who are these books influencing? Not adults. I mean, they are adults, but I mean, what's your primary target? It's children, right? Children. And when we think about it, even today, as we've been talking about today, that's really a lot where a lot of things need to start, right? Is we can implant the right thoughts, the right practices, and kind of help children think in a direction that's really going to benefit them in the end, right? And make them be not afraid, as I've heard some of, and I haven't had a chance to read your book, dear, but I'm going to be reading it, right? Mm-hmm. But just some of those great things. It sounds wonderful, that thing that you're doing there, and that you've been blessed with that talent to write. There's going to be many, many more writings and many more books, right? Which is awesome. So that's great. And then myself, I've been an entrepreneur really ever since I was a young man. I owned my first business at age 25. And as I've had different businesses, several years ago in one of my businesses, I had an opportunity to meet this guy who I really became to be good friends. I learned from him. He learns from me. Is Saad, and I really appreciate him. When did we meet? Probably 2013, 14, somewhere in there. And we've always kept in contact, sharing ideas, working together with different, ideas that we have and building on them and asking for advice of each other. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate him. When I think of Saad, I think of things like integrity, right? I think of honesty. I think of strong work ethic. I was saying to somebody here tonight, if I ever am playing basketball with him, I don't want to be against his team. I want to be on his team because he's very driven as well. And we've never played basketball, brother, but I'm telling you, if I ever go in the gym and you're playing basketball there, I want to be on your team because I know how hard you work and how hard you drive, and I don't want to go up against that, right? So, I've really learned to appreciate him and the things that we've shared a lot about just mentorship. And then when he just shared this idea with me recently, it just made so much sense. And it's so great, as you can see, he wants to give back in the things that he's learned. And just over my years, the one thing that I think I could leave with you guys and share with you tonight that I think is very important for all of us is to be coachable. And I think that, again, applies to every age. If we have a great children's book that we can read to a child, and if a child is coachable, they will learn from that book. And just like you and I, Saad, have been coachable to each other and learned. That's just a great thing. And I think as you go out now and start your foundation and doing mentorship, we want people to be coachable and want to learn. And I think as people are more coachable, that's where you see where we're going to have a lot of changes for the better. And sharing those ideas. So we need to support these things and help those people. But the other great thing is, as Saad, you're a great coach. But I also know you're coachable. And great people always have coaches. And again, I kind of got this basketball theme, so I'll go with that. Who is one of your favorite players? You liked Kobe, didn't you? My son-in-law loves Kobe Bryant too, and you know my son-in-law Michael, right? And really sad what happened to him. But do you guys know a talented player as Kobe Bryant every day spends time with a coach? Right? When I first heard that, I thought, that's like, he's the coach. He's the bomb. He's the one. But no, he's coachable, and he has coaches to teach him. But then also when the tragedy happened in his life, what was he doing? He was taking his daughter to a game that he was actually coaching others, right? So think about that. Be coachable in your life. Be open for change. Be open to learn more things. That's what makes us better. And that's what makes us stronger. And then also, as we get better, we can also be coaches. So appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here, and enjoy the night.
So I want to hear from y'all, but who are some mentors that you remember growing up? Your mom? Give me like one of her key sayings, like one of those ones that pop in the back of your mind when you especially don't want them to. Ooh, that's a good one. She said, hit me one more time. Right? What that basically means is like, if you don't stop, the world gonna teach you how to stop. And I've heard that more times than I would ever have wanted to coming up. So I know that that's definitely a prominent saying. Someone hit me with another one. What's something your mentors used to tell you? We ain't hear much from this side of the room here.
I'll go.
Yeah.
My mom would always say, it is what it is, because I would complain and be like, that's not fair. And she would be like, it is what it is.
Life isn't fair most of the time, so it usually is what it is. Yeah. I'm gonna give y'all a couple more stories before we get into a couple of question and answers. A friend of mine was supposed to come earlier today. He wasn't able to make it, but I was gonna have him come talk to y'all because he runs a mentoring group for kind of like younger Somali males with addiction issues, right? And he's actually celebrating one of his friends' year sobriety today, so that's why he wasn't able to make it. But I think we undervalue a lot of times the importance of like peer connections, right? When we're able to have other people who have traversed the same paths as we have, it does nothing but clear a path forward to make it easier for the next one, right? Like, y'all in Minnesota, so we are well familiar with snow. And so when you're in a field and the snow is accumulated and you've seen that there's a clearing that someone else has already walked through, right? Are you gonna ruin the bottom of your pants and your shoes to create another path? Or are you gonna take the path the other person did? Naturally, you're gonna take the path the other person has crossed, right? They've already went through those hardships. They've felt those things before, and so they can show you the way. And what I think is so important about what Saad is doing is you're catching people before they get to that point. And I think that that's what's forgotten so many times. No one has addiction because it's cool. No one has made those choices because like they were bored one day and were just like, yo, I really want to ruin my life, right? Humans are creatures of logic. We always rationalize decisions before we make them. And so oftentimes when there are these voids in other areas of our lives because the village is not as full as it should be, right? We look towards other ways to find equilibrium, to make the waters calm. And so when you have brothers like Saad going back, grabbing those brothers before they fall in, right? Then you don't have to clean up the water, it's already clean. And I think that's what's beautiful. I went to a HBCU in college, I'm alumni of the illustrious Wiley College, home of the great debaters. And a huge theme that was often held across our campus was it's a West African theme of Sankofa, right? Go back and get it. And that was a strong thing that people are able to do. You tap into the legacies of people that have already done the things that you're gonna do, and you move forward through it. I was lucky to be on a scholarship through college where I was on the debate team, and our debate team was founded in 1935, the only HBCU to ever compete against white schools in the early 30s. The first HBCU to ever win a national title, but it wasn't recognized because we were HBCU, so we just had to do it again to them in 2014. But knowing the legacies of the people that came before us on those teams, seeing the individuals and the accomplishments and the contributions that they've made to society, right? And looking back to the fact that we've already gotten past prestige. We know it's tangible. Then you see that it just takes that step. You know, it takes a couple people being your champions, like Warren and Brian are champions for Brother Saad here, right? Having those champions in your life are able to clear those paths for you, are able to make things easier for you. And I think that that is a beautiful, beautiful thing that we should all be celebrating, right? And we celebrate those things in many ways. We celebrate them by expanding our narratives in the way that Sister Mariam is doing with Brother Ali. It's no secret that autism is a huge problem in our community, right? There's so many people in our community that struggle with autism when autism doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't. There are resources for us to be able to tap into the various parts of our community because that's all people are, various parts of a community. And when you tap into that, you give people the pillars that they need in order to keep their structure strong, right? You're clearing that path for them. Instead of them having to walk in through the field of like not knowing how to navigate their savant skills because no one's ever told them, yo, you're really good at things and significantly better than a lot of other people, right? No one's ever taught them how to go through that path, so they're always the fish trying to climb a tree. They've never learned how to do it. And so when we expand the narratives, we expand the possibilities, a rising tide raises all ships, and then we're able to see the beauty of our community, right? So I've done a lot of blabbering, and we've heard some beautiful conversation with some of our brothers, but I want to hear some more from y'all, right? What got you out of bed this morning to come here? Like, for real, I know that, like, it's an event, we want to support the homies, right? But, like, beyond that, what got you out of bed to choose, I'm risking a coronavirus to come out and be in community today, right? Think about it. Who are some of those people in your community that you want to go back and grab, right? But we think we can't because we're not sure if it's our place. I really want y'all to just sit with that for a moment and understand, right? That the only thing that separates things from being an idea and being reality is the initiative to do it. You know how many people think that they can write a book? They can, but they don't do it. She did it twice, right? But she did it twice because she had the champions and the pillars in her community to encourage her to do it. She's seen it's possible because she has other writers that she looks up to and has seen their work and knows I can do that too. It's possible, right? But when we create these impossible ideas, then obviously we're going to have impossible results. But by expanding the Overton window, then we allow more people in, you know? So take some time, really think about some of the people that you want to impact. A life is valuable as long as you grab one other person with you. And if you ain't grabbing one other person with you, you deserve nothing. Like, for real. I know we're dropping a little bit of like the formalities of a minute, but like, like, you've been given opportunities. We're all here. We're all fly. We're all healthy, right? So that means we all have things. But how did we get those things? Because the dominoes fell in the right way. There is no such thing as merit, right? We are lucky enough to be around opportunities, and the dominoes fell for us in a certain way that cleared paths. So once you take yourself out of it and understand that we're all just a series of incredible coincidences, then you understand it's not only a nice thing to do to bring somebody along, but it's an obligation. You have an obligation to push that domino for somebody else. In the same way you got an obligation to clock into your job, you got an obligation to clock into your family, right? So if there's any questions, we'd like to open the floor for some questions. But before we do that, I want to hear from our wonderful sister, the two-time author. Oh yeah, no, we got to. We got to have the award-winning speech from our dear sister, Sister Mariam.
All right, so to kind of prepare this amazing speech for everybody and, you know, come here and just be like, you know, just wow you. But unfortunately, I was in a hospital last night, so I didn't really get to prepare my speech like I wanted to. So I hope you don't mind if I look down. I'm just trying to collect all my thoughts. So, okay. So if you don't know me, I'd love to introduce myself to you. Thank you. My name is Mariam Mohammed. I am the author of Aya's Golden Rule, as well as my new book that I'm launching today, What I Wish You Knew About My Cousin Ali. And some other titles that I hold near and dear to my heart are I am a daughter. And my mother couldn't be here today. She really wanted to, but she didn't want to risk, she wanted to watch my daughter, and she didn't want to risk Corona. She's scared of that, so I don't blame her. And I am a sister, a cousin, a friend, and my favorite title, I'm a mother to a beautiful daughter named Faduma, and inshallah, another baby girl on the way. I was born in Al Ain, and I immigrated to the United States with my family when I was about 5.5. And we resided in Houston, Texas. And I stayed there for a majority of my lifetime and then moved to Minnesota back in 2013, and I haven't looked back ever since. I felt that going into teaching as my main profession, it's really brought me so much joy, and I love my job. I love everything about teaching. I feel like working with children is an honor and a privilege, and it's honestly humbled me in more ways than one. So I will forever be grateful for the opportunity that I've received and that I've gotten with the MTCS charter schools. I owe them my biggest gratitude. Coming straight out of student teaching, they allowed me to come and just like, I was a mess my first year. Berta, I was a mess. I think I cried every day that week. But I realized that in the back of my head, there was this burning passion and something that I was missing at the same time. I felt like I was neglecting my other passion, my first true love, writing. Sorry, Sad. Right? I loved writing, and as I went through the school system and I was teaching day by day, I got to get closer with the students, and they've inspired and motivated me to get back to writing, because I realized that within the libraries, we would walk to a library called Sumner Library, and it wouldn't be too close. So I would have students kind of looking around, and anytime they came across a book with a student of color or a character with a hijab on, that's the first book they would gravitate towards. And I honestly don't blame them, because when I was younger, I would be searching for those type of books. I would be looking for books with characters who even slightly resembled me. And I asked myself, like, what brings me happiness? I keep going back to, like, am I fulfilled? Am I content with my 9 to 5? Or as a teacher, my 6 to 6? Because let's be honest, a teacher's day job doesn't end at just 9 to 5, or it's way more than that. So I asked myself that, and I realized that although I was extremely happy, I wanted to do more. I wanted to contribute more to my society. And I felt that by going back and maybe trying to come up with stories with characters of color, then that would be my way of being a storyteller. And basically, I would be happy, and then maybe I can contribute to my society, so it would be a win-win. So that's how I kind of got into writing. And when I originally wrote my first book, Aya's Golden Rule, it was based off of a true story about a student that I was working with at the time. She was fairly new to the country, and she didn't speak much English at all, actually. And she would be, there was a classroom we had back then, which was a newcomer room, where all the newcomer students would go there, and they would be receiving extra help in order to learn English, and then they would join us for some part of the day, but they would stay there mostly. And I just noticed how harsh and mean some of the kids would be towards her. And I was like, wait a minute, I go to a school that's 100% Somali, with Somali students. So I was like, and they're still being mean to her? And her parents, I had a feeling, brought her there so she wouldn't get bullied. So that was just very interesting to watch how it would play out, and that it doesn't matter. Bullying can come from anybody. It doesn't have to be, oh, the white kids are bullying the Somali kids. No, sometimes Somali kids feel like they have to bully the FOB student because that brings them like peace, like then I won't be picked on, then I am like Americanized enough and I fit in, so we can pick on this FOB. And if you don't know what FOB is, that's a term that the students use for fresh out of the boat. So I saw that going on, and it inspired me to write for this student and just see how it would play out. And I was like, wow, I wish there were more books for students of color that talks about their experience, right? Because a lot of the times what you see is for students of color, when you go to the library, thinking back actually to when I was younger, I would be terrified of asking my librarian, do you have any books with, I don't know, black people, students of color, anything? A girl with the hijab on? Because I felt like my 9-year-old brain thought that I would be the youngest racist in Texas, because how dare I talk about race in a school setting, in a school library out of all settings, an innocent place where race is taboo. So I would hold that back and I wouldn't ask her that. But what that librarian didn't know was that I was a closet writer, and I was literally a closet writer. Like I would hide in my mother's closet and write stories, because I grew up in a big family, so it would be pretty loud. So I would hide in that closet and I would drown myself in literature, reading and writing, and I was like, this is my passion, this is what I want to do forever. But what that librarian also didn't know, I was looking for validation in a way and permission to write. If she would have shown, if I would have asked, if I would have been brave enough, and if she would have shown me books where there were students of color, then I would be like, okay, I have permission. There are stories like this out there, so I can continue writing. So that's kind of sad, like that I had to take like permission as a child because I wanted to use my imagination. And I think back, and I wish I could tell my younger self that yes, inclusivity matters, and all children need to be represented, and it was okay to continue writing, because it's not about one person's story. There's so many stories, and I think it's a disadvantage when we just focus on, when publishing industries keep selecting the same kind of stories from one narrative and not like branching it out for all students from all walks of life. So yeah, so I continued writing, and I also noticed another reason why I write is because I also realized that when it has to do with students of color, especially I've noticed this when it has to do with African American characters, the publishing industry focuses on like the civil rights movement, right? So, and that's great, that's amazing. Children need to be educated on legends like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Harriet Tubman, but that shouldn't be the sole focus. Is that the only time where African Americans should be represented in children's literature? No. I feel like there should be books about your average everyday child who's a student of color. Same with Somali students. The focus shouldn't just be on their religion and how they have to keep defending it and talking about their attire. There should be books like that, but there should also be books about children who are also raised in the West, who were born in the West, and their everyday experience. There's just that one focus, one point of view. Oh, you're Muslim, so your book would sell more if you would talk about this topic, putting you in that box. And I say this from experience because I have met with, actually in Minnesota, a very big publishing company, and I was so excited. I was over the moon, and I was going to meet with an agent, and we sat down for lunch. I sent her the manuscript before that, and it was about a book, a character named Khalid, who was a Somali American character. And Khalid was struggling with peer pressure and giving into peer pressure very easily. His classmates would be like, oh, let's go do this, let's go steal candy from the teacher, and he would want to fit in and be cool, so he would go and do that. And how he overcame that, and he found that voice within and didn't give into peer pressure anymore. Well, I presented that, and she took one look at it, and she said, how about we change the focus of this story, and how about we make it focus more on his khamis, and that's like his thobe. How about it changes colors every day? Like it would be a different color every day, and I think that would sell more. So I was like, okay, cool. Okay, maybe I can work with that, but it led me to think like, why is it, again, every time it's a Muslim character, they have to focus on the hijab and the thobe and just like outer, which is, like I said, some books should be about that and should educate, but why are we always educating and defending ourselves through children's literature? Why can't we talk about, you know, the whole reason I wrote about Khalid was because at that specific period of time, I noticed that there was like a lot of gang violence, and our adolescent youth, our young boys, I think I heard there was one being murdered every other day, and I wanted to do something about that, something for our young teenage boys to maybe, if I can, when they're younger, if I can target young boys and girls to maybe not give into peer pressure, to maybe find that voice within, to speak up, to speak out. And like Farah was saying, was it Farah? I'm so sorry, it might have been Warren. It was either Warren or Farah, was saying that we need to start with our young children. It starts there. So I wanted to do that, but obviously it didn't work out because I didn't want to write about a thobe, khamis changing every day. I feel like we could have dug deeper there. So yeah, I wish that publishing companies would know that there's more depth to the Somalian people of color community. There's more depth to us, and we're not all about our, what's that word I'm looking for, oppression. It's not all about oppression all the time. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And then with my cousin Ali, the main book where we are here today, that one just had a special place in my heart. I've had family members who have autism. I have friends who have children with autism. I've worked with several students who have autism, and not just autism. I feel like as a community, we can do better on educating ourselves on all kinds of different abilities. I don't even like to call it a disability, different abilities, because like it was mentioned before, with being on the spectrum, you're great at some things, and some things you need help on, right? So it doesn't mean, oh, a lot of times I feel like not just our communities, but many communities alike, we neglect our children with different abilities, and not everybody, but for the majority, I'm gonna keep it 100. Like, I feel like we neglect our children with different abilities. We feel some sort of shame and embarrassment, and we need to change the narrative. It is 2020. I know it hasn't been the best year, but we need to change the narrative. I have had experiences where I worked at a daycare, and all my stories have to do with experiences that I've actually seen. Because like I've said, I don't write for, my job is not to write for the misrepresented and underrepresented children. It is to create a norm and a pathway for students of color, Somali Muslim American children, to feel comfortable enough and welcomed enough to share their own stories. I don't want to speak for them, but I want to share stories that I've experienced, that I've seen, and how it's played out. So back to what I was saying, I've noticed at a daycare I was working at, a child who was having a panic attack in a way, and he was just, we knew he was on the spectrum, the teachers knew, and he was just not having his best day. And his mother, I could see the embarrassment. The teachers knew, but a lot of the staff didn't. So she kept saying he just needs Quran Sar, which just means he needs like Quran, our holy religious book, read on him. and he's just acting, and then she pulled him out of the class, and we haven't seen her. She left. She didn't come back. So it's that embarrassment that was written all over her face. And then I've also had students where at parent-teacher conferences where the child was on the spectrum, and the school specialist would bring that up and would want to bring that up, but the minute you do, the whole vibe changes. And that hasn't been every conversation, but many. The whole vibe changes, and the parent either pulls the student, I've had it happen a few times, pulls the student, or they refuse services and feel that you've offended their child, that you're saying something's wrong with my child. So I feel like, again, we've come a long way, but we could do better when it comes to our children with different abilities. We need to give them a voice. We need to advocate for our children with different abilities and make sure we're providing the right resources from an early age. So I also want to include that in literature, children's literature. We need more books with children with different abilities, and we need to make sure that all children are included. It is very important that every story is not one-sided, and I wish the publishing industries knew that. Some of them, not all of them. But thank you so much. That's why I write, and I hope you enjoy what I wish you knew about Cousin Ali. Thank you.
So, like, in college, I used to study a lot of, like, film, and does anyone know how, like, the movie 12 Years a Slave won the Oscar? Cool. So, most of the people that voted for 12 Years a Slave to win the Oscar when it won never watched the movie, right? They voted for 12 Years a Slave to win the Oscar because it was supposed to. It's the slave movie. It's the movie that's about the sad black folks, right? So it has to win, right? And who does that serve? Absolutely no one. Because the people whom it's actually targeted to learned nothing because they didn't watch it. They just voted for it, so they gave it its gold sticker and got none of the lessons, right? It didn't serve the people that were making the movie because their film, their work of art, wasn't even enjoyed before it was given the trophy. That's like winning a race you haven't even won yet, right? And so oftentimes when we already create the end of the narrative before the narrative's even been written, we're completely usurping any of the joy that you could get from doing this really wild thing called learning about someone who's different than you, right? It's a wild concept, but it seems that though we're incredibly committed to not doing that as often as we can, and we've been not doing that for a very long period of time. But a wise man once said, the definition of insanity is doing something over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, if 2020's taught us quite literally anything, we've been doing everything over and over and over again and are met with complete insanity, right? And so by having narratives like Sister Mariam's narrative that normalize them, it's important for us to not just celebrate it. It's important for us to actually also consume it so that we can learn from it. You're not going to get nutrients from food you don't eat. No matter how many times you look at a plate, you ain't going to not be hungry until you eat it, right? So it's important for us to actually support our sister's work in more than just word service and actually learning from it and applying the lessons that we've learned too. So without further ado, I would like to invite our dear Fly brother up. I thought I wore a suit today, and he was like, no, you didn't. Brother Saad.
Assalamu alaikum. First off, thank you, Farah. I really appreciate it. Second, I would like to thank you, all of you guys. If you're here tonight, just know that you're really near and dear to my heart, okay? So everyone that's in attendance tonight, you guys are very close to me, and I really appreciate it. Second, I would like to start by thanking my wife for being the best wife in the world, and the best mother to our little daughter, Fatima, who couldn't be here tonight because the party would have been over. So thank you. And before I get into it again, I will thank a couple of friends, and I will start with my Abti Usman. Thank you for really speaking highly of me. The goal in the future is, if I could be half of the man that you are, I think I accomplished a lot in life, you know. And if You know, so thank you always for talking highly of me. I really appreciate it. Tonight, you all witnessed how great Mariam is and how much she cares about children, and it's amazing. You know, it's amazing giving it back to the community by teaching and by taking care of our youth. And that really started with her. And a couple of years ago when I started Coherent Transportation, my way of giving it back to the community was providing safe and reliable transportation to our children. And after a year, that expanded. You know, I thought about a way to invest in the youth and to see how I can shape the life of our youth, which is very important in our lives. I mean, imagine how many kids, how many young men from low opportunity circumstances that don't have a voice in their homes or in their corner. And that's where I want to fill in that gap and come out and make sure that our youth has been taken care of. And it's a great thing. I'm really honored to do such a thing because it only changed our lives, my life as well. When I first came to this country, you know, my uncle Faisal, who is here tonight, and I wanted to give him a shout out. Thank you for changing my life, because if it wasn't for him, I'll tell you, I wouldn't be here tonight. I would not be here tonight. I've always wanted to just go to work, you know, have the typical 9 to 5, drive a nice car, and don't care about education. But he always told me that if you want to go far in life, you got to go to school. You got to learn. And that message always sticked with me, you know. And I'll tell you right now, I tell you the youth, if you really want to be respected and people to view you differently, you got to go to school. You gotta learn. You gotta educate yourself. So for me, I'm always a student. I learn every single day. I don't have a big head. So if you really tell me something, I'm not gonna go like, no, I know. As Brian would say, I have an MBA. I know everything. Nah, you know, I'm always be a student. So I'm really honored to be here tonight, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Again, I want to thank Sister Mariam and Brother Sacid'S for a beautiful evening. I want to thank Brother Brian and Brother Warren and Brother Osman for giving us some beautiful words throughout the night. I want to thank all y'all for being here and being fly and hopefully COVID-free, because I don't want to die. I'm just going to give y'all a couple of really quick last stories, and then we will open for some question and answer, hear some book signings, and get some hoodies. So just kind of going back to what Brother Sacid'S was talking about, with the importance of these mentorship programs, right? I am a product, simply anything that I've ever done has been because of the people that poured into me, right? And it's because I was lucky to be in those spaces, right? Nothing separated me from many of the individuals that I came up around, other than my domino fell into someone's hands that realized, I might be able to do something with this piece, right? And chose to pour into me. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And I very much challenge everyone in this room to reach out to someone else anywhere, right? We get into these false ideas oftentimes of thinking that mentorship is a one-way thing where the person is going to teach you and it's like just pouring into a glass of water, right? That's never how it actually goes. Mentorship is always a two-way street. You're going to learn so much more from the people that you're mentoring than they will ever learn about you. So just to kind of quickly round out, when I was in college, I was on the speech and debate team, and then after I finished, I had an opportunity to coach the next year, which was a wild experience because they were my teammates a year ago, and now they're my students the next year. So everything that they were doing at tournaments to try to get away with, I was doing with them a year ago, and now I'm the one in a different position, right? But what that taught me is that a lot of times when we are in a supposed teaching situation, by breaking down those barriers and getting to a person-to-person relationship, you're able to have actual impacts. I remember one of my students was having a mental health crisis one day while we were at school, right? And because of some of the trust that we were able to build in our individual speech coaching program, where we were talking about health policy or something the entire time during coaching sessions, right? But we built that trust, we built that rapport there, and so he was willing to come and have a conversation with me when he was going into crisis, which also taught me that if I'm in an area where I'm not, all the way good at the moment, I can go to someone else that I trust and get that bit of encouragement that I need, And it takes a village of people raising each other. And so last thing that I will leave y'all with is a poem. I've been doing poetry since like 8th grade. That's kind of like why I was brought here today. So I will do a poem about my nephew, because he's like the person that I've chosen to be the person that like I go back and grab, So, my nephew often tries to convince me that he is a dinosaur. He flares his nostrils and huffs through a scowl, and I gotta tell you, it's adorable. He watched Aladdin with his mother the other day. He cried when the genie left. He asked who would look out for Aladdin with endless wonder in his eyes, and I want to tell him, sometimes you gotta be the one to look out for yourself. But he's 5 and hopeful with all this stardust behind his eyes. And see, the next day he would take my things and announce that he's a street thief while waving his loot in my face. He's not the slickest kid in the world. But he will dance and sing you a song at the drop of a hat. I'm talking full out choreographed numbers to whatever audience might be watching in that particular moment. One day a little boy punched him on the school bus. Little white kid that lived next door to the principal. He sought to teach my nephew about his place in the world, and this is the day that you fear as an uncle. When problems aren't as simple as playing along with his dinosaur impressions, where it's lessons that the world will Jurassic Park you one day, build you up, celebrate you, gawk at your wonder, just to break you down because they fear all your potential power, my boy. I pray Disney movies will be the cruelest thing you ever experienced. I pray that neither black nor Muslim become liabilities, but extension to a history that tells the story of you, of all your potential power, of all your growls and huffs, and your sharp dinosaur claws, and your curious smart brain, always. So I want to thank y'all all for being out here again. Buy the book, buy the hoodie, support each other. It takes a community. We raise each other. We villages out here. Have a beautiful night.